Well then, after that last video, we left off in the field, and it looks like I found myself outside of some sort of destroyed ruins, which leaves me a little intrigued. But we have entered the second set in the Neo era, which is Neo Discovery. The set came out in 2001, June 1st, and features 75 total cards with 17 holographics. And this set goes back to the old fashion of reusing holographic cards as non-holo versions. But this set introduces 4 new artists to the TCG, which is cool, considering this is such a small set. And this set does not feature Kensuke Mori artwork, which is kind of surprising to me, as most of the other sets have featured at least one card by Sugimori. But let's see what Neo Discovery has in store for us. Let's begin. So, Neo Discovery, being the second set in the Neo era, gives us some more Generation 2 Pokemon, and the set brings along the Espeon and Umbreon cards. This set also introduces Pokemon like Caesar and Tyranitar into the TCG. Let's move right into the artist. Atsuko Nishida returns again for 5 more cards for Neo Discovery. Nishida worked on the Espeon and the Yanma holographic cards, as well as the Butterfree, the Yanma non-holo, and the Mareep for Neo Discovery. The absolute standout card is the Espeon, which is gorgeous. You can see Espeon dancing on the water ripples below it, and its reflection can be seen as it's bounding. I'm so happy that Espeon has such an amazing first card, and I'm happy that Nishida was the one to illustrate it. The Yanma is cute too, as it flies in front of some sort of forest, which is easier to see on the non-holo version. The Butterfree is seen flying through a forest, and the Mareep cutely lies down next to a tree. I love Nishida's cute style, and it works well for the Pokemon that they were given, even a Pokemon like Yanma, which isn't particularly known for being super duper cute, in my opinion, but Nishida's contributions to Neo Discovery make it the set that we know it as today. Sumiyoshi Kizuki worked on 6 cards for Neo Discovery, being the Hitmontop Holo and non-holo, Metapod, Xatu, Natu, and the Sentret. You can see how the Hitmontop has no borders, same with the Sentret, but the Metapod, Xatu, and Natu all have those iconic thick borders that Kizuki used at this time. I really like the Hitmontop, as it's super dynamic. You can see its foot being mainly focused on as it spins upside down, and light reflects off its foot as buildings can be seen below it. I like the Xatu, as it's pretty symmetrical, besides the beak, which makes the Xatu look very unique. It makes it look very ruinous, like it's an ancient Pokemon who has existed for aeons. Same can be said with the Natu. It looks like it's existed for years and years, with a temple in the background. Overall, the Kizuki cards in this set are distinct and exceptional, as always. Happy to see them consistently working on the TCG since their debut. Shinichi Yoshida worked on 6 cards in Neo Discovery, being the holographic Houndoom, holographic Poliwrath, and then the non-holo versions of Houndoom and Poliwrath. Then the Houndour and the Amistar. I really like the Houndoom holo card. It is a good rendition of the Pokemon that makes it look pretty menacing, and it's not the usual rendition of Houndoom, but it sort of looks different from how it usually does. But it does look cool. Then the Poliwrath is pretty neat too. The backgrounds aren't super complex, but they definitely get the job done. And the Houndour is pretty cute, but you can also see it walking away, looking back, which is cool. And the Amistar is on top of a rock looking down, which is pretty menacing. I actually quite like the Amistar card quite a bit, which is funny because I don't remember Amistar being a very noteworthy Pokemon in the past. But honestly, Shinichi is a really good artist, and I'm happy to see more of them. Tomokazu Kamiya returns for 3 cards in Neo Discovery, being the Politoed Holo and non-holo, and the Pineco. I like the Politoed card a lot. The background is very fleshed out, and the sun/moon being obstructed by a heavy fog, but the sky is still deep and light at the same time orange, and that can also be seen in the holographic version of the card quite well. And then there's the silly little Pineco looking upwards, which I don't mind at all. It looks quite cute, and it's a good rendition of Pineco, but the highlight here is definitely the Politoed. I love these Komiya cards quite a lot, and I'm excited to see more of him in this next set. Our next artist is Miki Tanaka, who worked on 4 cards in Neo Discovery, which is the Igglybuff, Teddiursa, Tyrogue, and the Weedle. I like these cards. They are definitely vintage, and they feel and look vintage. I still like the fact that Tanaka has unique backgrounds that are super visually distinct amongst their own cards, so that's something good to note. And I like the Teddiursa trying to hide its honey away from other Pokemon, and the Igglybuff hovering on some sort of balloon. I also do like the Weedle that's just chilling on a leaf. We'll also see Tanaka working on the next set when I cover it, so that's good, and I'm excited to see more cards by Tanaka. Kagemaru Himeno worked on only two cards in the set, but that's okay because the two that they worked on in the set are quite cute. I like the Poliwhirl a lot, as it has its hand out with the bridge in the background in some sort of lake, and the Hoppip is frolicking in a field. I really like them. They're both quite cute cards, and Himeno makes work of the semi-simplistic backgrounds with cute and dynamic Pokemon in the foreground. Naoyo Kimura worked on four cards for Neo Discovery, being the Ursaring Hollow and non-hollow, the Umbreon and Espeon non-hollow, which are all quite gorgeous, and I like the Ursaring. It looks very menacing with its mouth open and arms spread wide out, but the Espeon and Umbreon are gorgeous. And they all connect into one artwork, which includes a Japanese exclusive Eevee card that was supposed to be included into the main set. The Eevee is the middle piece of the three cards, which is a super cool little fun fact. Kimura's artworks are pretty stunning, with the temple in the background and the detailed texture below the Umbreon, while Umbreon itself looks super cute. I really love the Espeon though, it looks very stoic and alert, and Kimura being able to do two of the biggest non-holo cards in the set says a lot. Next, we can move on to Hironobu Yoshida, who worked on 8 cards for the set, which I believe is the most so far, which is cool. Hironobu worked on the Smeargle, Tyranitar, and the Wobbuffet holographic cards, and the Smeargle, Tyranitar, and Wobbuffet non-holo cards, as well as the Pupitar and the Larvitar. I really like how there are so many different styles in Hironobu's artwork, like the Wobbuffet, with the bright white outline, even in the holographic version, which makes it stand out a lot. I like the Tyranitar a lot too, as you can see it dynamically posing having its arms in different positions with its mouth wide open. The Smeargle is painting a smiley face, which can be better seen on the non-holo version of the card, which I think is super cool. The Pupitar has a dotted pattern along it, and the Larvitar is kinda clouded behind some sort of cloud, and it's burrowing into the ground. But the card is a close-up shot. Hironobu's cards are pretty iconic, and even for a Pokemon like Wobbuffet or Smeargle, I think that Hironobu makes them look interesting, giving them something to actually do. CRCG Gangs is back for 18 new cards, which is actually the most cards one artist did for the set, which is something of note. Now I gotta mention that CRCG Gangs actually did some cards of their own this time, and not all of them are collaboration cards, but we'll go over those ones first so we don't get mixed up at all. K.A. Hoshiba worked on 4 cards for Neo Discovery, being the Magnemite Hollow and non-hollow, the Fossil Egg, and the Hyper De-Evolution Spray. I like the Magnemite's background, but the card is not the most interesting rendition of this Pokemon that we've ever seen before. But it is cool to see it in a holographic format. And then the fossil egg is something hatching out of an egg with a realistic ground texture below it. And the Hyper De-Evolution Spray is a spray that's spritzing out the De-Evolution Spray, or at least that's what I'm assuming. These cards are perfectly fine, and they're good 3D graphics cards, though not my absolute all-time favorite 3D cards. Not to diss Kei Hoshiba, though. I'm sure we'll see even better renditions of other Pokemon in the future. Big Mama Tagawa got 2 more cards in the set, being the Ruin Wall and the Energy Arc. You'd think for as cool of a name as Energy Arc is, which sounds like some sort of ancient evil arc, it's really just an old box with some inscriptions on it, with all the energy types coming out of it, besides the darkness and metal energies, which seems like a strange omission. But still, I don't mind the card, with a little shading underneath the box with it slowly being opened. And then the other card that Big Mama did is the Ruin Wall, which looks to be some sort of old puzzle with what looks to be some kind of Kabuto on it, which is a cool nod to the idea of fossil Pokemon. Happy to see some new cards from Big Mama, but I think it's time for us to move on to the actual CRCG gang. They worked on the Fortress and the Unknown A holographic card, as well as the Fortress and the Unknown A non-holo cards, as well as the Unknown D, F, M, N, U, E, I, and the unknown O cards. So yes, having a Pokemon where every form represents a different letter of the alphabet seems a little excessive, but some of these are pretty cool. I like the unknown O, with the eyes surrounding it. The unknown M looks cool with some bubbly aura around it, and I really like the silly little pose that the unknown F is in, where its body curves funnily. The fortress is certainly a card in Neo Discovery, as you'll see it looking forward blankly with a forest behind it. And that's all I can say about it. But the unknown cards are definitely a unique concept for the TCG to handle. So at least that's something. Overall, CRCG Gangs created a cards for a bunch of unknowns and a fortress card. So you can take that as you will. And now we can move into all the new artists of Neo Discovery. And starting off, we'll go with Yukiko Baba, who illustrated 4 cards in the set, being the Kakuna, Dunsparce, Wooper, and the Spinarak. I like that the Kakuna has a black aura around it, with black eyes. It makes Kakuna look weirdly scary. And the Wooper floating in a coral reef is pretty cute, as it blankly stares forward. The Spinarak is cool because of the green web that it stands on. and the Dunsparce is cool because of the dotted white around it. Overall, all these cards are very different from the last, with different outlines, different shading techniques, and other unique aspects about each one. A strong start for a new artist, who will continue all the way up to our most recent set, which is Wild Force. Next, let's move on to Kimiya Masago, which is an artist whose name I've never heard of before, but I feel like a lot of these artists are ones from a vintage era. But these cards are awesome. Another cool thing about this artist is that they're completely new. Masago illustrated 6 cards for Neo Discovery, being the Kabutops Hollow, Caesar Hollow, and the Umbreon Hollow, as well as the non-hollow versions of Kabutops and Caesar, and then the Scyther for the set. Firstly, this semi-realistic style is something that we haven't really seen all too often to this point at the TCG, so that's pretty commendable. But also, the Caesar and the Kabutops can be seen coming right at the camera, which is something that I don't think we've seen since Jungle. But the Umbreon might be the star of the show, even though I'm more of a Caesar guy myself. This Umbreon card is by far the most expensive card in the set, being roughly $95 for a completely damaged version of the Unlimited card. And I can see why. The flowy tail, with the Umbreon looking back at the camera as the moon sits behind it, is just plain iconic for this era. And much like the Lugia from Neo Genesis, this card cements itself as one of the most iconic cards of this era. I think it's nice to see cards that aren't always just Charizards as the top chase cards for a given set, and this one is no different. Masago made a huge first impression with Neo Discovery, so kudos to that. Yuka Mori is another new artist who got their start in Neo Discovery, illustrating 4 cards for the set. But something super unique about Mori is that all of these cards are created out of clay, which is something that, even if disliked, can be admitted to be super unique, as obviously we've never seen this kind of clay-mated cards before. And they did the Caterpie, Kabuto, Ammonite, and the Corsola. These cards are all really cool in their own right, with the Corsola walking across the seafloor, the Caterpie is in the leaves, the Kabuto is looking forward, and the Ammonite is on the shore. My personal favorite of the 4 is the Kabuto, which is just so darn cute. It gives us a unique take of what Kabuto could actually be like looking forward. For the first 4 cards that somebody did, these are awesome, and I'm sure the people of this time collecting this set thought the same. Finally, I was saving someone who I personally enjoy for last, which would be Aya Kusube. Kusube worked on 5 cards in this set, and this is the introduction of this artist into the TCG. And they were able to work on the Houndour Hollow, Beedrill, Houndour Non-Hollow, Eevee, and the Poliwag. I really love the Houndour, as it looks forward in a deep dark field of grass, and I love the Beedrill. As I said before, Beedrill is one of my favorite Pokemon, and this one is looking through a cactus field. I really love it. The Eevee looks a tad bit goofy, but it's still cool, as it's in some kind of lab, and then the Poliwag looks to its side as it's surrounded by a bunch of lily pads. And these first 5 cards are enough to cement Kusube as an artist who has something to show for, and the next set accentuates this so much further beyond. So look forward to Kusube's work in the next set as well. So, that was Neo Discovery. Overall, a very small set with a lot of hidden gems in it, and I really like this set quite a bit. There's so much diversity in the holographic cards. I'm sure there's at least one card you could find in this set that you like, and I'm happy that there's so much diversity, even in such a small set. That feeling gives me serious Team Rocket vibes, where the set may not be big, but the quality of the cards is all top notch. Neo Discovery introduced many new Pokemon to us into the TCG. Pokemon like Houndoom, Espeon, Umbreon, Caesar, Tyranitar. These Pokemon are the foundation of Generation 2, and are all still super popular Pokemon even to this day. If we want to go into my favorite cards of the set, I would definitely have to say that the Espeon, Hitmontop, Wobbuffet, Houndour, and the Caesar Hollow cards, and then the Espeon non-hollow, Poliwhirl, Poliwag, and the Wooper, as well as the Beedrill. I like a lot of the cards in these sets, and it only grows more and more each time they add a new artist. If you wanted to create a full set of Neo Discovery, it's going to be a little cheaper than Neo Genesis, or it may be around the same price, around 300 to 350 bucks for all damaged cards. But still, really impressive that a set like this even exists, especially with such gorgeous illustrations. Join me in my next video, where we go over Neo Revelation. Also, if you had to pick a favorite card from this set, what would it be, and why? If you watched this video, then let me know in the comments below. Anyways, I'm about to go into these dangerous ruins. Thank you. Goodbye now.